minute. But first, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to have Caitlyn Scaggs, class of 2007, with us. And I will turn it over to Caitlyn. If you guys have questions throughout, please feel free to type them in the chat box. If you are watching on Facebook, please type them in the comments and we'll get those questions answered for you. So I'll turn it over to you, Caitlyn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank. Well, it is so good to be with everyone today. I'm glad we have found time and space to connect even across the distance. First, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about who I am so you have context for who is speaking with you today. So I am very much a proud Highlander, class of '07. I came to Radford with a very singular goal in mind, and that was to be a criminal justice student and maximize on my criminal justice education here. I was part of the fraternity Lambda Alpha Epsilon and just a very involved student, and just have so much pride in the experience that I had here at the university. As soon as I graduated, I entered the field of law enforcement, and I served in Roanoke for 5 years. But when we started to have a family, things changed, and I transitioned out of law enforcement and I began a career in marketing and communications. Ultimately, through a variety of, let's just say, twists and turns along the way, I ended up here at Radford as the Associate Vice President for University Relations and spokesperson. But I will say to you, today I'm coming to you as Caitlyn, the sum of all these parts. I'm not coming to you as a university employee. I'm coming to you as someone who's excited to share words of encouragement, some thoughts for consideration. I love public speaking. I have an active blog, and I have dreams like I hope many of you do, and I am an aspiring author. I am married with 2 children. They'll be a large part of the remarks that I share today. You're going to hear a lot of mom stories. You're going to hear a lot of leadership and work-based information. But I would say that there's another layer to who I am, and that is also that I'm a board member for New Hope Girls. So that's an important piece of who I am, because it is a voluntary position with an organization that rescues young girls from really challenging, dark, hard places. And through that service, I have not only learned a lot, but I've also been able to use marketing communications for good. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the ways that our skill sets can be used to contribute to a bigger cause, something larger than ourselves. So when I'm not working, when I'm not serving with New Hope, I do love to run. I drink more coffee than probably what makes sense on a daily basis. Very active reader. I prefer fiction, but I read all sorts of different types of books. And then I would just say I'm a lover of life, right? I like the taste, the textures, the vibrancy of life. So that's who you're going to get today. Someone who looks for the bright side, and someone who is committed to making it wonderful, even if things are complex these days. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to talk about the complexities and also if it's possible for it to be wonderful. So it probably goes without saying that things are complex these days. I probably don't need to tell you that, but let's just recap. We are living in a global pandemic. There are social justice issues and a movement for change. I don't know about you, but I'm really missing my family. I'm missing friends that I'm used to seeing. You'll see here in this photo, this is me meeting my niece for the first time over Zoom. I've still not met her in person. So there's this certain element of something's really missing relationally for us. Many travel plans have been changed. We're wearing masks. We're not able to see faces and smiles. Teaching, learning, working from home. Did anyone else get to do that awesome trifecta of fun with your kiddos? Because it's a lot. And then also just, we still have everyday life challenges. We still have disagreements with our spouses or coworkers. We still have to go to doctor appointments. We still have all these other stressors that are churning in the background. But then we have these added heavy layers of complexity. And so we have isolation, we have a lot of pain, we have a lot of fear, and we have a lot of anxiety. And it just really sounds like a horrible recipe for such a challenging time. And it is, and it's hard, and it's complex. But I would also say to you that I really do believe things can still be wonderful. My mom, who's gonna come up throughout this presentation because moms are great, she likes to say to me, every rose has a thorn. And I just think it's such a great way to summarize my approach. I do love the sunshine, and I do love this really yellow lens of life of let's look for the best, but I'm not for this toxic positivity that fails to acknowledge there's some really hard things out there. And if we act like they're not there, we're selling ourselves short. the complexities of life. So yes, every rose has a thorn, but it doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. And that's what I really hope you hear from me today, is that it is not going to be perfect, but it most certainly can be wonderful. And a lot of that starts with releasing our expectations and extending ourselves grace. I think we also have to reject consuming negativity, because if we're not careful, we can find ourselves in this space during this challenging time. So the rest of my remarks are going to help us move through finding that balance of acknowledging the complexities, but being fully committed to making them wonderful. So we're going to start with how we can be reverse storytellers. I love words. I told you I love reading, I love writing, and I love storytelling. And so when COVID-19 hit, and I remember on March 13th, I believe it was, when we got the call that the kids were going home from school, and it was 2 weeks, and it just felt like a lot. But I do remember in that moment, I paused and I thought, okay, what do we want this to look like? When we reflect on this period, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, how do I want my family to describe what we are experiencing right now? What are the exact words that I want them to hear? Because I do know that those conversations are going to happen. And so I encourage you to do this as an actual activity. So don't just listen and reflect, but actually get out a pen and paper and consider 5 to 7 adjectives that you will use in the future to describe the reality that we are currently living in, or your reality. How do you want it to look for your family or for you personally? How do you want to be able to describe it for your team at work? And I did it, and this is truly just me writing it out real quick. I think challenging is fair. I think beautiful can also be fair. Slow down and simplified are 2, though, that I really held on to when we were navigating the work from home, learn from home reality. I didn't want it to feel overwhelming, and I didn't want it to feel chaotic, because I feel like that was the tendency we were being invited into just by all the changes and all the unknowns. So for me, slow down and simplified were really, really important. So step 1, figure out 5 to 7 adjectives that you will use to describe in the future. So then I would ask you to consider, what will it look like if you are stepping into that reality? So if you say that you want it to be slow down and you want a simplified reality as a family, what does that actually look like? And you need to be detailed and specific. So you can't just say like, oh, it'll feel better. That's not specific. So for me, an example would be, if I want things to be slowed down, that means when you look at our family calendar, it's going to be simplified. We are not going to have things booked during weeknights. It is going to be parsed down so that we have room to breathe. So this is your next step, is to write out evidence that you are living this reality. So in essence, you've got the starting point of here's what I want it to look like. And now you're creating the bookend of here's how I will know that we have achieved that reality. So kind of the starting line and the finish line, if you will. And then I say, go back and fill in the story with what those measured steps will look like. Because you know where you're starting from and you know where you want to go. So what will it look like to take one step at a time to get there? So make a measurable and be specific. For me, if we want to have a simplified and slowed down schedule, it means family movie nights, because it means we're all sitting on the couch with minimal expectations, just enjoying being together. Slow down means extra time when I tuck my kids in at night, because I'm fully present for them and I am there with them. It means saying no to weeknight activities, because I know that going to school in the middle of a pandemic is a lot, and it's a lot to work through that, and it's a lot to handle. So those are some of the examples of the measured steps we take. I'm also committed to being stronger than ever together as a family. So dance parties in our kitchen, pictured here, my awesome dance moves, are one of the ways that we take measured steps as a family to fun and laughter and to buffer all that is so hard and so challenging right now. So these are 3 easy activities you can do, figuring out how you want to be able to characterize it, how you will know that you have achieved that goal, and then what are the steps in between that will get you from the beginning to the end goal. This is something you can revisit. It can be your pulse check as you continue to navigate all that is challenging. Ask yourself, have I stood by what I said I want this to look like? Am I moving in the right direction? So be a reverse storyteller, but I don't think that that's enough. I think there's other things that we need to do in order to embrace the complexities and make it wonderful. I would say lighten up. You know, life is too serious to be serious all the time. Perhaps no truer words. There is a lot going on right now that can weigh on us. And so there are some steps that we can take intentionally to lighten ourselves up and to refresh ourselves through all that is challenging. I would first say seek adventure. And, you know, you hear adventure and maybe you're thinking Mount Everest or, you know, traveling across the globe. And I think adventure can be closer than you think. I would say adventure is exploring new tastes and textures and sights and smells that you've never experienced before. I think it's something new, something exciting, something that stimulates the senses, like perhaps going to a farmer's market and seeing what the local vendors are selling and trying new food. We went to the Floyd Farmers Market not too long ago, and my kids tried an empanada that had lamb, and that was a new taste and a new texture for them. And it was really fun to see them experience something so new right here in our backyard. And I posted the rules from it because there are safe ways to do it, even in these challenging and limited times. There are opportunities, but I would say we have to be committed to leaning in and seeking that adventure. This is a picture of my mom. I told you she was going to come up a lot. We went walking together here in Radford, and there's this really incredible tree, and we stumbled upon it, and it just lit us up. And I think something about our inner child was just really delighted by such a cool looking tree. Obviously, mom got a picture in it, so, and I did too. So there's really these awesome opportunities. I think it can be cooking a new recipe, trying a new restaurant. Apparently, I like food a lot. Mixing up your routine, so maybe go a different way, try a different course if you get out and walk or run, but find ways to embrace a sense of adventure even here in your own backyard. I would also say we really got to be careful how we're feeding our minds today. One of my friends gave advice to be concerned, but not consumed. What great words. So educate yourself from reputable sources, but also figure out when enough is enough, when you need to unplug and you need to step away and you need to give yourself that space, that mental margin to just breathe without feeling consumed by all that is out there. As parents, I also would say, you know, if you have children, remember that their eyes and ears are listening. So the way you're feeding yourself, they perhaps are being fed as well. And this is a really challenging time. So little ears, little eyes, maybe not so little, maybe they're older, are also listening and also taking in this information. I also suggest that you clean up your social media feeds. If you find yourself not being filled by your social media feeds and instead getting frustration or anger or perhaps even fear, it's time to consider who you are connected to, who you are following, and how you could perhaps change things up. Each platform has really different features, but I would say one thing that's nice with Facebook is you can mute people for 30 days, or you can stop following them and stop seeing their content. Or of course you could always unfriend if needed, but there's too much going on to add layers of unnecessary weight. And social media can become that if we are not careful. And lastly, I would say to look for reasons to laugh. They say laughter is the best medicine, and they say it for a reason. So I like to think that I'm a connoisseur of comedians on Netflix. It's just what I do. They make me laugh, and I just know at the end of a really long day or a demanding day that laughter feels so good. Impractical Jokers are another favorite. They are good, clean fun, and they are hilarious if you have not seen that show. So there's opportunities out there to have someone else make you laugh. But as a family or with a friend group playing games, charades, Pictionary, it's really hard to take yourself seriously when you're playing those games. Cranium is another one. Just find a game to play. Just do something in which you are not acting your age. I think parenting is a great prompt to not act your age because your children just kind of naturally invite you into that space. But even amongst friends, you know, just let loose and let go a little bit. Let go of being so serious and look for reasons to laugh. One thing that I am serious about is self-advocacy. To me, it is having this sense of self-ownership, who you are, what you do, why it matters, and it's being able to express it to others. So it's not enough to just know those things, know what you want, know what you need, but it's being able to vocalize that to other people. And I often talk about this as having the conditions to succeed. You must speak up so that others know what conditions you need to succeed. This is not only important at work. I think that sounds probably like the most obvious application, is letting your boss know what you need or putting meeting structures in place at work. But this is also about interpersonal relationships amongst friends, amongst a partner or spouse, even amongst you and your children. So here's my brain dump of options for what you might need to succeed. Many of these are, so like coffee in the morning, that's a very personal one. I wake up and I need my coffee in the morning, and then life can continue forward. That is a condition I need to succeed. So is the chore swap. I really hate vacuuming our stairs. It is very specific and it is very in the weeds. And if I could just not do that chore, I'm in a much better mental space than having to do that chore. It sounds silly, but if my husband doesn't mind doing it and I absolutely loathe doing it, why would I not self-advocate and say, hey, can we do a chore swap so I'm not doing that thing I hate so much? Another one is even just brainstorming family dinners. I just sometimes mentally don't feel like I have the energy to think that through, and having someone else put thought around it with me is a game changer. So consider what your conditions to succeed are at work. If you find yourself feeling frustrated or worn out or maxed out in any one particular area, that's a good indicator it's time to pause and consider if you need new rules of engagement in that area. Do you need more face time with someone like your boss or perhaps someone that reports to you? Do you feel like if you could just see each other, even if over Zoom, you might have a more effective, productive relationship? Ask for what you need and figure out how to be specific about it so that you are setting yourself up for success. And I have a note about that. I think that sometimes we have this habit of saying things like, well, I totally dropped the ball on that one. Well, what if we were proactive? What if instead of dropping balls, we took it and we placed it down and just said, not today, or not right now, or that's not the thing to do for me today. And I would say that it takes this helplessness feeling out of it, and it allows you to step into a place of ownership and being intentional. So you're saying this is not the right thing for me to do right now or today, but it doesn't mean it's a no forever, or it doesn't mean that you're walking away from it forever. So an example of that would be our family choosing to keep our weeknights simplified right now. It means that we are not chasing athletics. It means we're not doing kids sports. Like if that works for another family, great. But we are choosing to put that down right now and say we will revisit it in the spring and see if we're in a different place. Because for right now, that's just too much. There may be something in your life. It may be that you are pursuing some kind of professional development that you say for a semester, I got to pause. I need to be able to focus fully in another area. But instead of beating yourself up and saying that I'm dropping the ball and I'm this, that's mean self-talk. I think it's more appropriate to say, I am choosing to put this ball down for right now. And another day I may choose to pick it back up, but today is not that day and this is not that time. So think about how you're speaking about the things and the choices you're making, because even that language can be intentionally kinder to yourself. So put a ball down, don't drop it. This may be one of the points that I'd like to bring before you today that sounds a little counterintuitive, but hang with me here. So when you feel overwhelmed, like think in your mind's eye about the last time that you felt truly overwhelmed or truly anxious, or you just had a horrible day. And often when we find ourselves in those places, there's this tendency to turn inward, and we just think about us and how bad it is and how overwhelming it is. And our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it truly does become about us. And I am not begrudging those days or those feelings, because goodness knows I've had those recently. We all do. But I would encourage you to consider how you can live beyond yourself. And one of the best ways that I do this is when I feel myself turning inward with negative feelings, I will pause and I will say, who can I serve today? Who can I try to cheer up today? What can I do for others? And essentially random acts of kindness, because I find it has a way of drawing me out of myself. It brings perspective. It brings just a reminder that I'm not in this alone, that there's other people. And so Mom, who's now come up, I think 3 times in this presentation, I didn't like this advice when I was a kid, especially not when I was a teenager. but I really like it now. And it's this idea of seeing beyond the end of your own nose, that when we are having a hard time, and sometimes we really can only see this far, but when we open up our eyes to the world around us and to the perspective that there are other people going through other things as well, it has a way of drawing us out. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be time consuming. It doesn't even have to cost anything. I think about simple things like a heartfelt thank you to the barista at Starbucks who is making all those caffeinated beverages all day long. How can you say thank you in a way that he or she really hears you and feels perhaps seen? Just quick things like, you're someone I can always count on. Thank you for that. Or, compliment me on my shoes. I always like a compliment on my shoes or my purse, or your outfit looks nice. There's just ways that we can be generous with our words and encourage each other in the process. And again, what does it cost us? But I think the potential for return on that investment in being kind to others could be everything. Kind gestures. It's hard when we are busy. It's hard when we all have jam-packed schedules to think about pausing and doing for others. But I have a couple little hacks here that could help with it. One thing is remembering big stuff by putting it in my phone. So if I have a friend or a colleague who's having surgery, I will put it in my phone as a reminder for first thing in the morning, so that before I get to the office and before the busyness of the day kicks off, I'm prompted to reach out and send a quick text, if appropriate, buy flowers or do something to show I was thinking of you today. You were on my mind. Those things go so far. Did you read a book that you really loved? Well, maybe share it with someone who you know is also an avid reader. Maybe it's a handwritten note, which is so refreshing in this highly digital climate that we are increasingly living in. It can feel good to get something in the mail and to hold something in your hand that's so representative of thought and care. And I don't know about you, but I always like sweet treats. So is there some kind of some gesture that you can just surprise someone in the morning with donuts or a muffin and just let them know that you are thinking about them? And it just has this amazing way of giving this boomerang joy. It just comes back around. And when you're feeling so down or so overwhelmed or so weighty from all that is going on in this world, it really does open you up to a broader perspective of those around you. And it reminds you of community. And I would say too, acts of service. So for me, volunteering with New Hope in the Dominican Republic has been transformative in terms of perspective, that I do have challenges and my challenges are very real and they're very valid. And there are problems in parts of this world that are truly hard to comprehend. And even though I've been there and I've seen their faces and I know their names, there are days that I wake up and I cannot believe that they are having to endure some of the things they're having to endure. It doesn't mean that my problems aren't valid, but through this act of service, through this opportunity to volunteer, I am reminded afresh of how much others are going through. And by serving them, again, it only comes back around full circle. There are more simple, everyday ways that you can serve others too. I think, proactive and anticipate, 2 words on this particular slide, are really about being thoughtful and intentional about your interactions with others. So anticipating needs at home could be that your partner has had a really long week, and instead of an expectation of dinner prep, it could be that you picked up the favorite takeout and you were ready to go because you anticipated that need at home. It could be that, a colleague is buried and just feeling completely overwhelmed by a major project. So you find a way to proactively pick up some slack for them so that they feel seen and heard and valued, and they know that someone is in their corner. And it's when we do things like this, when we have kind words, gestures, these acts of service, that we come together. We rally together around each other to affirm that relationships matter and people matter, and the days may be hard, but we are in this together. So when you find yourself in a really dark place, in a really challenging place where it just feels so heavy, remember the words of my mama and see beyond the end of your own nose. Look to those around you and who you might serve, knowing that it's only going to come back around and it's going to fill you up in a boomerang joy sort of way. And so we're nearing the end, but I think that there is always something to be thankful for. And this to me is the most appropriate way to wrap all of this up. Gratitude, similar to serving others and being present for others, has a way of refocusing us. It's where we choose to place our eyes, what we choose to see. But I would say that it's a habit. It's not something that one day you wake up and do, or one day you wake up and see. It's about choosing to hold ourselves accountable to seeing the good, even in the face of all the challenges. So it is not false positivity. It's not that it's good, it's all good, I promise it's all good, when it's not. That's not true gratitude. But it's finding things that you can genuinely stand on 2 feet and say you are thankful for, even amongst all that is hard. And there are practical ways that you can really refine this, that you can grow that muscle and you can build it up so that gratitude comes to you more naturally as you move forward. I'm a words person. I mentioned I'm a words person. So to me, word choice is so important. I have to take my kids to school, or I get to take my kids to school. Getting to take your kids to school, to me, has more reflection of gratitude, as you see it as something that's a blessing to be able to do, as opposed to an obligation that you have to endure. In the work context, are you being burdened with a project, or are you being entrusted with something important? When you have to work from home, is there an opportunity to see it as getting to have lunch with your family every day, getting to see more of your spouse or your partner, getting forced to slow down and not spend time commuting perhaps? I think that we can shift our language and shift our perspective accordingly. So consider that the thing you may be defining as a challenge, like having to work from home, could be an opportunity to say, I get to work from home. So pivot from challenge to an opportunity. I'm big on being a memory keeper. The upper screenshot you'll see here is from our family photo book. I am all about the family photo book. It is something that I update 1 month at a time. I upload my photos, and then I put in all the details that I think we're gonna forget. So lunch bus was a really big thing for my kids when COVID hit, and the bus would show up and they would hand out their little bags of food. We would walk to the end of the street. It was this whole routine, and we just started calling it bus lunch, and they would say, is it time for bus lunch? And it was just so special to us, and it's not here anymore. It's done. We did that thing. It's already a memory, and it at the time felt like it was going to be forever. And it's not. We have a way of weathering these storms, and the things that we thought we would never forget, somehow we do. And so for me, documentation of the journey is so important, because we are weathering something that is unprecedented. It's global. It's historic. It is huge. And if we hope to remember this, to look back someday and reflect with gratitude on the journey, to reflect with gratitude about the bus lunch and how cool that was to my 6 and 8-year-old, documenting it is going to be really important for that. And it's something that I just really love to do. So I think the other thing is you may not be into photos, and you may not be into, that may be a little extra what I do with my photo book, but do you have a journal? Do you have a place where you can jot down a couple things? I've looked back at mine from the March timeframe, and I've been astounded at the details of either fears or anxieties or concerns I had. And to see where we are now and how things have progressed now that it's September, it's amazing. And I wouldn't have remembered all those little details had I not written them down. So you think you'll always remember, but details have a way of being diluted over time. And I would encourage you to find a way to document now, because later, looking back, that's when the true reflection and the gratitude will emerge. And so speaking about reflection, I think gratitude really comes from looking backward in time and seeing where you've come from and where you are today. What is one of the hardest things that you've endured? When you put some thought around that, you realize how strong you are. You realize how capable you are. You realize how there was a time you didn't think you could do it, but you did. And so now in this present time, when things are hard and challenging, and we don't know how it's all going to work out, you're reminded that you've done hard things before, and you most certainly can do hard things again. Also, think back to when you laughed really hard. That will put a smile on your face, and it will remind you that there are still moments of joy and still good things happening, even in the challenging times. Reflecting on bright spots from the past week. This is something that the team I lead, they may not like it. And if they're listening in right now, they may be rolling their eyes. But every Thursday, we come together over Zoom as a team, and one by one, we go around the team and we share our bright spots from the week. They could be personal, they could be professional, but the intent of the activity together is to remind ourselves that no matter what the challenges were of that week, we do have something that shines bright as a high point in the week. And hearing other people talk about theirs, hearing them talk about what makes them excited or feel good or was fulfilling, is also a source of encouragement. So be quick to share those things with others. Be quick to encourage others with your gratitude and with your bright spots. And then thinking about relationships. Who went out of their way to make you feel seen, valued, heard? Those are things to reflect on gratitude with. And then you've heard me talk about some of the little things I like: running, coffee. I really like fuzzy socks, hence the picture here. There are these little things that may seem so small and so tiny, but when we have them in place, our cup is being filled and we are feeling more cared for. We have those conditions to succeed that we talked about. So sometimes it really is the very little things that make us feel so good. So reflect, spend some time today. Similar to the other activity, this isn't just meant to be like a maybe someday hypothetical. Really do it. Reset yourself with reflection today and find yourself in a place of gratitude for all that you've endured, the moments of laughter, the bright spots you've experienced, the ways others have shown up for you, and even the tiny things that bring you comfort. This is something practical you can do today to help yourself reset. And so it only seems fitting that I would end the formal part of my remarks today with a place of gratitude, that you would show up today when we are probably all relatively zoomed out, and you would spend part of your time with me hearing what I have to share. I would say that I hope this is the beginning of a conversation. I really do love connecting with others. I love, the conversations around how do we support, how do we encourage, how do we listen when times are good and when times are bad. So I get it's complex. It is very complex, but I'm also committed to making it wonderful each and every step of the way. So with that, I'm going to go back to my general home screen here, and I will be pleased to take any questions that may have come up.
Thank you so much, Caitlyn. We did have a couple questions come up, so I'll just read a couple to you now, and we can kind of go through. If you have more questions for Caitlyn, feel free to type them in the chat box, and we'll get them answered for you as well. I think the first question we get a lot is there a book or podcast that you recommend?
Yes, there is. I'm trying to see if I have it here. Okay, so I'm looking back here behind me. So one that I really like is The Power of Moments. And I think that is a Chip and a Dan Heath book. So The Power of Moments is one that I really like. It helps us think through our interactions and with others and what makes powerful, but what makes them powerful, what makes them stand out moments. Anything Brene Brown is a book that I would recommend. So Braving the Wilderness is one of my most favorite books by her. She has several leadership books about how to lead with courage and matched with vulnerability. So I would suggest her as well. And then Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. That is another book that I have read and really take to heart. And I'm someone that I mark up my books. So I write in them, I highlight, I put big hearts. And a technique that I have is I keep them on my desk and around me. And when something is coming up in a situation that kind of prompts, like, this feels familiar, I know I've read something that would really help, I flip through and I look through the highlighted notes, and it helps me, continue to glean from their wisdom and knowledge.
Awesome. So you did kind of talk a little bit about this. You talked about like kind of exploring and, finding new places. What is one place in the New River Valley that you find helps renew you, that maybe alumni, when they come back to visit, they can go check out?
Yeah, I like that question. Okay, so I've got a couple. So Buffalo Mountain in Floyd, I know it's a little bit of a drive to get out there. I seriously think it's about as beautiful of views as McAfee's Knob. I mean, it is stunning. It doesn't have the little peak where you can get the cool picture about to fall off the edge of the world. So you won't have that, but you stand there and you feel like you were looking out on forever. It is breathtakingly beautiful, and it's not too tenuous of a hike. I would say that if you come back to campus, you should also make sure you head down to the river, because the walk along the river is right there. Try not to be jealous, but most days over lunch, I go walk down by the river. I know, sorry for those of you that are coming to us from afar. And then I would just say that a farmer's market for me truly is the most readily available adventure on the weekends, because it just feels so different. It's so different than a grocery store. Obviously, it sounds silly to say, but it's such a different experience, and seeing the different types of people and the sights and the smells and the various flavors that you don't really experience on a normal day. Floyd's is really awesome, but of course Blacksburg also has an incredible one as well. They're all around us. So those would be some of my recommendations.
Awesome. What's one piece of advice for parents who are working from home with young kids who don't really understand that your attention is sometimes needed elsewhere?
That's so hard. So mom guilt, parent guilt is such a real thing. In a very practical sense, I worked hard to not schedule back-to-back meetings so that I was able to pivot between, what do you need? Are you hungry? Do you need attention? Versus having my attention on the computer screen or a task at hand. So I would suggest being really guard your schedule and put those buffers in between meetings. That's one step you can take. And then the other thing is just trying to find activities that will really consume them, and depending on age that can be challenging. But for my kids, I would take all the Play-Doh out. I'd put a plastic tablecloth over the kitchen table, and I would say, I want you guys to make me the most amazing bakery you've ever made. Make me baked goods with Play-Doh. And then they had this big idea they were working through. So I tried to find activities that would consume them, and I helped guide them, but not micromanage. And then of course, you mentioned young, but as it's more age appropriate to discuss, I would say things like, you are very important to me, and so I am going to be able to play with you here in a short while because I want us to have time together. I need to get this done for work because they're expecting this of me. I have a lot of responsibility, and then I will be able to focus on our time together. And I guess the final thing I would say is having some kind of rhythm of, do you do breakfast together? Is it the breakfast and lunch? Is there some kind of snack time that they can expect so that they do have some kind of structure when everything feels kind of untethered right now?
We just had another question come in. Suggestions on connecting with coworkers during this time of working from home, other than additional Zoom calls.
Yeah. Okay. Other than additional Zoom calls. So that's a really good question. So of course it would need to obviously be appropriate, but sometimes like funny memes that are in the appropriate vein, like having just a stream of those, that has been something that has really kept me laughing and connected with others. Sometimes if you can find, this is another great example, if you can find a shared podcast or author or something that it's like you're doing it in parallel, but then you're texting about what you're doing. So you could send a photo of highlighted text like this. Did you read this? This spoke to me. Finding a podcast that you both listen to. It's kind of like that can be the gel whenever you don't have those moments at the coffee pot right now, or for me walking across campus, but you can have it if you find this shared thing. And maybe it's not even work related. Maybe it's a Netflix show. I'm really into Madam Secretary right now. So if you want to watch it alongside me, I will text you about Madam Secretary because I can't get my husband to watch it. But so maybe it's that you find something like that. That's the gel that holds you together during this time.
Speaking of Netflix, we just got a question. Who is your favorite Netflix comedian? We need that right now in all this craziness.
So I am not endorsing any of the language, but I will tell you that there is one. I'm going to make sure if it's Jake or Jack. Jake. It's Jack Whitehall. He is he's from the UK, and he is so stupid funny that I'll put in my earbuds and I'll just start laughing, and my husband will be like, what is going on? But again, I will not, do your own like PG-13 test before you choose to watch, but he is pretty hilarious.
How do you get over the guilt of how do you get over the guilty feeling about self-care?
Not always easily, but I think it goes back to that idea of conditions to succeed. And so succeed doesn't mean amazing job, or I don't mean succeed in the tangible like wealth and prestige and all that. I mean, feel good about life and feel like I'm living the life that I want to live. And so I feel like conditions to succeed are almost non-negotiable in my mind. There is some gray area of like, oh, going for a hike with a friend on a Saturday. Do I really need that for self-care or not? But like the basic of, in all seriousness, coffee in the morning and, quiet time of reflection. If you don't put those things in place, it's not even about self-care anymore. It's about almost like survival. So I think it really comes down to, for me, knowing that when I am my best self, my family gets the best version of me. The last thing that I want them to do is have my seconds, right? I want them to have mom full strength, ready to go. Now, sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that's challenging because there is the reality of that we hit on complex, right? Work is still needing me, and there is still a global pandemic, and there's still a lot of issues swirling around in the atmosphere. But when I indicate that I need to go for a run to be well, my husband knows that I'm not just saying that just for fun. Like, she needs this and he supports it. So I think it really gets to that piece of speak up and being comfortable hearing your voice say, and you may say it this way, you may say, in order to succeed, I need coffee. In order to succeed, I need time with you. I need one-on-one time with you. In order to succeed, I need 10 minutes when I get home to put all my stuff up, and then I can pivot into mom mode. So I guess for me, self-care is like I feel like it's a basic right as a human that you should have in order to thrive through all of this.
I have two more questions that I have right now, but if anybody else has any more, feel free to send them my way. Who is your mentor?
Ooh, so mom, you might have gotten from the slide deck that I love my mama and we are very close. My dad is as well, but I would say beyond the family, I was really fortunate to have a woman named, and some of you may know her, Jennifer Owen O'Quill is her name. She works with a leadership consultancy in Roanoke called Voltage. And she helped me have courage as a leader. She helped me feel comfortable hearing my voice. She helped me be comfortable receiving hard feedback, which I think is so important to us as leaders. And she also helped me figure out how to pause and lead with grace and understanding. And so she's just been absolutely incredible. It started in a formal mentor relationship, and now she's just a dear friend to me. So I've appreciated that, especially she's willing to speak truth and say hard things to me because she wants me to grow.
And then I have a question that we like to ask all of our wisdom webinar people. Why are you proud to be a Radford alumna?
Oh, so many reasons. So I talk about my time at Radford as when I really found my passion for learning. And you heard about my journey, and you heard that I went from criminal justice law enforcement to marketing communications. I had a marketing agency for about 18 months that grew really rapidly and then was strategically acquired. And now here I am working at the university as spokesperson and AVP. And it's been this wild journey. And to me, it all comes back to Radford, and that I had faculty who helped me figure out that knowledge is attainable, that I can go find it. And I was given the tools to basically self-educate. And I felt like for the first time, I kind of had, the world was mine for the choosing, right? That I wasn't limited, that actually everything was opened up and possible for me. So in some ways I say Radford, I learned how to learn. Like, I just learned that this is up to you. No one is going to give this to you, but if you want to go get it, then go get it. So that is one of many reasons. And also I would just say that the relationship piece of it is, I'm still so close to some of the faculty that I had back in 2007, and now I get to see them as a colleague. And I think it's just really special that all those years may have passed, but those relationships are still very strong and intact.
Absolutely. Relationships are really important. And I feel that way too. So I just want to say thank you so much for presenting today. We've really enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else has as well. I do want to give a quick plug. October 16th and 17th will be our homecoming weekend. We are virtual this year. We have a whole slew of events for everybody to enjoy, a lot of virtual events going on. So definitely check that out, radford.edu/homecoming. We hope that you will join us. So thank you again, Caitlyn. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we'll see everybody next time.